higher than the daily infections back in September. That is, if there's not enough interventions to curb the possible Omicron-driven surge. The COVID-19 treatment czar says they're now pushing for stricter implementation of measures to lessen transmission, and Vega is also pushing for increased vaccinations.
Definitely, we are also assuming at this point that the Omicron has taken its leap coming from the returning overseas Filipinos and international, and there's even a talk of a local transmission. So definitely, we really have to do some public intervention here to make sure that we have to lessen the transmission, and of course, definitely increase our vaccination.
Meanwhile, an infectious disease expert says there seems to be underreporting of COVID-19 cases as recorded infections only come from RT-PCR tests. Dr. Ronzin Solante tells 1PH's Wagpo that many COVID-19 patients in hospitals are antigen positive, and he now calls on the government to also include in their reports those who tested positive for the virus via antigen tests.
It's important that we have to document also those antigen positive kasi ang nangyayari ngayon, ang na-record lang natin are the RT-PCR positive. So that means, I would say, that's an underreporting of the current scenario.
Metro Manila is seeing an exponential growth in COVID-19 cases over the past few weeks. On One News's agenda, MMDA Chairman Benhur Abalos says the moving 7-day growth recorded from December 19 to January 1 is up 967%. The average daily attack rate has also climbed from 0.63 to 3.76. Abalos says it is possible for authorities to bring back checkpoints in Metro Manila if the situation escalates further.
In just one day, 285% in just one day, in January 1, it became 501%. Imagine that. So the growth is really exponential.
Meanwhile, the Labor Department reminds employers that there are no changes on the vaccine mandate for workers. Labor Secretary Silvestre Bello says workers still cannot be compelled to undergo vaccination. That's unless Congress passes a law that makes vaccination mandatory.
Hindi mo mapilit yung worker or employee mo na mag-vaccinate, pero you can require the employee or the worker to undergo PCR test before they report to office. That's another issue. So pwede yun, pwede yun. So kung hindi siya papasok, then we apply the principle of no work, no pay.
Bello also said employers are not obliged to pay for their workers' COVID tests, and he explained that the workers should be liable for testing expenses if the government will not shoulder these expenses. Political analyst Dindo Manhit says Bongbong Marcos became President Duterte's presidential bet after Bongo's withdrawal from the presidential race. In an interview with the Chiefs, Manhit explained that BBM is enjoying much more than just President Duterte's favor. The Strat-based ADR president said the issues being raised against Marcos's candidacy are not important matters as far as the general public is concerned.
I still respect the institutions, but at times the institutions needs to be influenced by public opinion, and that right now the issues against Bongbong Marcos is not on the top of mind of voters. I'm talking about the disqualification, the issues raised in his disqualification. It's not really being felt.
Apple has just made history as a rally resulted in $3 trillion in market value. Creative Strategies principal analyst and CEO Ben Bajaring joins Bloomberg's Emily Chang to discuss this hot topic in this report. Let's listen in.
I definitely think it's worth it, and I do think it will stick. If you look at a lot of the investment consensus out there, I think a number of large banks have put somewhere around a $200 per share estimate onto Apple, which just shows you, again, increased confidence in all of their categories. I think when you look at Apple's historical performance as well, so many of their businesses have tended to do well, even in times of economic hardship. Not that we're in that now, but I think people are looking at the role that inflation may play in consumer confidence. I think Apple continues to be that pretty safe bet for growth. And I think just look at a number of their growth business opportunities. It's not just iPhone. You've got wearables, you've got AirPods, you've got the Mac now starting to become a growth business that we're particularly really interested in to see how the Mac grows and bullish on the Mac. So, again, I think investor confidence is really at a significant high for Apple and a number of big tech companies. So I definitely think it will stick. And I think Apple's a really safe growth bet for a lot of funds.
When you look at the near term, though, would you predict drops like we saw after 1T and 2T?
I think you still might see a little bit of variation. I'm not sure we're going to see significant drops because, again, I think people know that the product cycles are really strong. It'll be interesting to see really the commentary that comes out around Apple's December earnings and just get a sense of what any kind of supply chain, which is really the biggest impact to potential volume, is just what's going on in the semiconductor supply chain. I think demand remains significantly strong for their products. We see that in our research. I know a lot of big funds are seeing that. So I wouldn't expect huge drops. I do think, again, there's some level of drop that happens, but I think this stock continues to grow well over the next year.
Big tech in general added $2.5 trillion in market values just in the last year. Microsoft, Alphabet, Apple, of course. Where do you see that going in 2022?
Yeah, I think a big story is going to continue to be these large tech firms and just their asserted dominance in the markets that they play. I mean, if you just look at the names that you mentioned, with the exception of Apple, which is kind of the rarity in terms of their overall CapEx spend, you got Microsoft, you got Alphabet, you've got Amazon, all spending $30-40 billion in CapEx estimated in 2022 and growing. It makes it really hard for anyone to displace incumbents when it's going to require that level of finances to go into not just cloud, but new consumer hardware. If you think about AR, VR, and headsets, these are expensive, really big bets. And I think that's why there is so much investor confidence in so many of these big tech stocks, because they have the capital to be patient. They have the capital to develop these markets, enter the right products into these markets, and actually satisfy any demand that comes up from there. And so I think that's why you're seeing that continued confidence. And again, your guys' numbers have shown, if they outperform many of these other indexes and other stocks in the market, investors are going to gravitate to those bets that are returning them the consistent the yields that they're looking for.
Drag queen Manila Luzon proved that she can lip sync and sing for her life. That and more in this report from MJ Marfori.
From drag queen to karaoke queen.
Mga kaawit bahay, sing! Galing na!
RuPaul's Drag Race alum Manila Luzon flexed her vocals as she raced a New Year's episode of TV5's Singaling.
I smashed it, broke it in half, stomped it to a million pieces. It was exciting for me. I mean, I love karaoke. I do it all the time, usually behind closed doors.
Besides Manila, Wildcards also stole the show in Singaling's Back Bakan. One actor-singer also has no qualms dressing in drag. That's Marky Strom you'll see in Signal Play's My Delivery Girl. In the series MediaCon, Marky says he himself got bullied for expressing himself. But the big revelation, he admitted to being demisexual, meaning he gets attracted to a person based on emotional connection regardless of gender. Being a part of the series, he says, gives voice to the LGBTQIA+ community.
Demisexual is very close to asexual. I've lost sexual interest in individuals. It's hard for me to get sexually aroused. I have to have an emotional attraction to someone to be able to hook up, either whether it be long-term relation.
The pilot episode of My Delivery Girl is streaming on Signal Play now. For News 5, MJ Marfori, we are One News.
Beautiful.
Here's a quick look at some of today's headlines. The Philippines returns to higher risk category due to the rapid increase in COVID-19 infections. A panel of experts warns COVID-19 cases may reach 20 to 40,000 per day by mid-January. And pharmacies in some parts of Metro Manila run out of paracetamol. Demand suddenly spiked after the New Year celebrations. And those are the top stories at this hour. Join us again later at 2 p.m. as we continue to monitor the day's biggest stories. You can also catch One News on Signal Play. Just register for a free account at www.signalplay.com so you can stream One News live anytime, anywhere. I'm Charles Lejano. Mask on, wash hands, and stay safe, Philippines. We are One News.